Canada is taking the next steps in a massive procurement project to replace our aging submarine fleet, naming German and South Korean companies as preferred suppliers.
So companies from Germany and South Korea are both in the race for the multi-billion-dollar deal. Ottawa is looking to get a deal signed quickly.
I think, you're getting more. This is a tripling of the fleet, going from a current fleet size of 4 to 12. So that allows a consistent, persistent presence on both coasts as well as into the Arctic.
Hey, welcome back to the channel. Something big is happening, and almost no one's talking about it. While Washington has been busy raising tariffs on steel, aluminum, heavy trucks, and even pharmaceuticals, Ottawa's been quietly building something far more strategic. Long before the trade war heated up, Canada had already set in motion a secretive project, a 12-submarine program capable of operating under Arctic ice and carrying ballistic missiles. It's the largest defense investment in Canadian history, worth up to $25 billion. But it's not just about weapons, it's about independence. And here's the twist. The leading partner isn't the United States, but Germany's Thyssenkrupp marine systems. That single decision could redefine how Canada positions itself in a world where allies are starting to look more like competitors. So, what's really behind this move? A quiet preparation for the next era of global tension, or the first sign that Canada is ready to stand on its own? Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button. A simple like helps push this video to more people who need to see it. But just as Canada was preparing to unveil its partnership with Germany, Washington struck first. In early October 2025, the United States turned tariffs into an economic weapon, doubling down on protectionism with a series of measures that hit right at the heart of Canada's industrial base. A 100% import tax on pharmaceuticals, a 25% duty on heavy trucks, and months earlier, a sharp escalation. Steel and aluminum tariffs raised to 50%. For a country that supplies a major share of those materials to the U.S., the impact was immediate and deep. Steel mills, auto parts manufacturers, and aluminum plants across Ontario and Quebec suddenly found themselves on unstable ground, not because of market failure, but because of policy shock. Washington's decision reshaped what had once been one of the most integrated supply chains in the world, turning cross-border cooperation into a high-stakes battlefield. Behind the numbers lies a deeper truth. If Canada continues to depend on unpredictable U.S. trade policy, even its most strategic industries, including defense, could be paralyzed overnight. Still with us? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. Yet even as Washington raised the stakes, Ottawa had already made its move. Just 3 weeks before the new U.S. tariffs took effect, Canada quietly shifted course, signing a sweeping strategic agreement with Germany that could reshape its economic and industrial landscape. On August 26, 2025, Prime Minister Mark Carney and Chancellor Friedrich Merz announced a broad partnership focused on critical minerals, clean energy, and defense cooperation. The goal was clear: to build a transatlantic supply chain strong enough to withstand political shocks and global disruptions. At the center of this alliance are minerals like lithium, nickel, and rare earths, the essential building blocks for batteries, renewable energy systems, and military technology. Both sides pledged to develop refining and recycling capabilities that would reduce dependence on Asian processing hubs, long seen as a strategic vulnerability. But the agreement went further. Germany, already a leading contender in Canada's submarine program, became a cornerstone in a broader effort to link energy, industry, and defense into a single ecosystem. Instead of reacting emotionally to U.S. pressure, Ottawa appeared to be redefining the structure of its alliances, turning short-term disruption into a long-term opportunity. From that point, the logic behind Ottawa's strategy became clearer. In a world increasingly defined by economic blocks and resource competition, whoever controls the minerals controls the future of industry. Canada saw this early and moved before the pressure mounted. Through its alliance with Germany, it began focusing on lithium, nickel, copper, and rare earth elements, the raw materials that power electric vehicles, renewable energy systems, and advanced defense technologies. Much of the world's refining capacity for these minerals still sits in China, creating a single point of vulnerability for global supply chains. That imbalance pushed Ottawa to reposition itself, not just as a mining nation, but as a trusted supplier for the West, capable of filling the gaps left by geopolitical tension. The new policy emphasis is no longer about extraction alone. Canada is investing in refining, processing, and recycling, keeping more value at home while reducing exposure to unpredictable partners abroad. In effect, minerals have become the first line of defense in Canada's economic security doctrine, a shield built from technology and resource management rather than tariffs or protectionism. Behind the mineral partnership lies something even larger, a full-scale energy realignment designed to fill the void Europe has struggled with since the Russian gas crisis. What began as a conversation about critical minerals has expanded into a transatlantic blueprint for energy security, with Canada positioning itself not merely as a supplier, but as a strategic anchor in Europe's transition away from Russian dependence. Canada and Germany are now working closely to establish liquefied natural gas, LNG export routes from Canada's Atlantic coast to European terminals, an alternative supply line that could, over time, replace a significant share of Russian imports. These projects are more than pipelines and ports. They represent a deliberate effort to redefine the geopolitics of energy, turning natural resources into instruments of stability rather than leverage. In this arrangement, energy stops being just a commodity. It becomes the connective tissue of a new strategic alliance. To make that vision tangible, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced plans to mobilize nearly $500 billion Canadian dollars in infrastructure spending. The investments will span deep-water ports, LNG facilities, renewable energy grids, and digital logistics systems that integrate energy exports with industrial production. The ultimate goal is to create an Atlantic corridor, a trade artery linking North America's abundant natural resources directly to Europe's demand for clean, predictable, and politically stable energy. For Berlin, Canada now stands as the last reliable source of clean energy in the Western world, a partner capable of replacing volatility with trust. For Ottawa, the benefits are just as profound. This alliance offers not only long-term financial stability, but also the industrial foundation needed to sustain its broader ambitions, including the multi-billion-dollar submarine program and the expansion of its defense manufacturing capacity. In essence, what started as a simple trade initiative has quietly evolved into a strategic energy pact, one that could reshape the balance of economic power across the Atlantic. If successful, it would signal that Canada's role in global energy no longer depends on geography or proximity to the U.S., but on vision, the ability to turn resources into influence and partnership into power. Step back from the deals and numbers, and a deeper shift comes into view. Under Mark Carney, Canada appears to be testing a new model of autonomy, not breaking away from the United States, but no longer standing behind it either. This isn't rebellion, it's recalibration. Ottawa seems to recognize that in an age of economic volatility and geopolitical competition, dependence, even on an ally, carries its own form of risk. As one former official put it, Canada no longer has leverage with Trump or with China, so it must use public investment to replace foreign capital. That line captures more than a policy change. It reflects a transformation in mindset. Rather than letting global markets or U.S. decisions dictate outcomes, Canada is asserting ownership over its future. Massive state-backed investments are now flowing into energy infrastructure, mineral refining, and the country's emerging AI and defense sectors, areas once dominated by foreign interests. Analysts have described this approach as soft decoupling, a gradual, deliberate move to reduce exposure to foreign shocks without provoking open confrontation. It's an economic balancing act. Strengthen domestic capabilities, diversify partnerships, and quietly shift from reliance to resilience. The partnership with Germany, spanning submarines, minerals, and clean energy, perfectly illustrates this evolution. It shows a nation no longer content to react defensively to global events, but determined to shape them. Canada's actions suggest a country moving from adaptation to authorship, designing its own place within a fragmented world economy. For the first time in decades, Ottawa appears ready to trace its own line in both economic and security strategy. It's a subtle but unmistakable declaration that national independence in the 21st century isn't won through rhetoric or confrontation. It's engineered through infrastructure, alliances, and long-term intent. From Berlin to Ottawa, a quiet message is spreading. Canada is no longer merely an extension of the U.S. economy. It's becoming an independent pillar within the Western network. The partnership with Germany reinforces that position, giving Canada a bridge role between North America and Europe at a time when the global trade order is fragmenting. European analysts have even described this as a model of democratic autonomy, a counterweight to Washington's growing protectionism. Yet the reality remains complex. Roughly 75% of Canada's exports still flow south to the United States, leaving Ottawa deeply intertwined with an economy it's also trying to hedge against. Any escalation in tariffs or political tension could disrupt that balance, testing the limits of Canada's newfound independence. If Washington continues to treat tariffs as a political instrument, Canada faces a difficult choice: accelerate diversification and invest in its own industrial base, or accept a future as a satellite economy orbiting American policy. In that light, the 12 submarine program becomes more than a defense project. It's a question of identity. Is it just a symbol of pride, or the beginning of a truly independent Canada in the 21st century? And maybe that's the question worth leaving with you. In a world defined by superpower rivalry, can middle nations like Canada chart their own course, or will they always be pulled into someone else's orbit? If this video gave you something to think about, like and subscribe to support more content like this. Thank you.